hi you guys. Happy Friday evening. It is the Friday before Christmas. I believe it's the 20th today. Ooh. And there is no easy way to start these videos that I plan on doing, where I am really going to try every night from now until Christmas for the next few nights at least, to come on here and talk about grief and grieving through the holidays, grieving through the anniversaries, the birthdays, all of the special days that are just rough. And this has been laying on my heart heavy, but that's how the Lord works. He'll lay something on my heart, and then I'll pray about it and he will confirm, and I'll pray about it and he will confirm. And I was actually just talking to my girlfriend Constance about doing this, and then my son came home to break the news that we lost our neighbor, and he leaves behind a wife, a new widow, and a big family that loved him and adored him, and he was such a good man. So I feel like there's like a widow born every day, of someone that I know, or somebody that I know knows. So I thought that I would just turn on the camera, and these are hard conversations, and I am almost 4 years into my grief journey of being a widow who has now remarried, which we will talk about too, because I think that's important too to talk about. But I just want to start tonight talking about grief. Now, and what I have learned along the way, specifically like learning how to surrender, how to really surrender. Now, just a little background, I was an atheist. I was a Buddhist, practicing Buddhist for over a decade. I was a new believer about a year before our accident. I started coming to the Lord, coming to Jesus. And I had a girlfriend who helped me with my journey, and I started writing and journaling the Bible. She sent me the book of John in a journal, and I started writing it, and I started reading it. And I had tried to read the Bible when I was a kid, but I got married in a church, and I believed in God, and then I questioned, and all of it. But I really started coming to the Father like a year before our accident. And then when our accident happened, I was in the pit. I was in the well. Was in the well like Joseph. And when they say Jesus will meet you where you're at, Jesus met me where I was at, and he met me in that ICU bed and changed my life forever. And as soon as I was able to walk without my walker and be able to walk with a cane, I was baptized. And Danny was baptized with me. And even though he had been baptized as a baby, and so had I, But anyway, that's a story for another day. But I will say that I could not have survived my grief without my faith, without really knowing, not believing, but knowing that God had me, and God has had me. And now I know that God has had me my entire life. I just didn't welcome him in. And it has changed me. It has changed me from the inside out. I am not the same person. And so I just want to, I want to preface that, because as I'm going to share with you my journey and what I have learned the past 4 years walking in grief, and really I've been walking grief for, my mom passed, it'll be 12 years in January. And I did not walk through that grief well, because I didn't walk with the Father. So I didn't grieve in a healthy way. I shut down. I was angry. I was sad all the time. My mom died in her sleep. Her heart just stopped. And she had thought she was sick. She thought she had bronchitis. And I was like, Mom, you gotta go to the doctor. You don't sound good. And my mom had white coat syndrome, so she never went to the doctor. And she said, okay, if I don't feel good in a couple days, I'm going to go. And she's like, I just feel like there's an elephant on my chest. It just, and she had that bronchitis cough, but we didn't know at the time her lungs were filling with fluid. And she died of heart failure. And my mom was my everything. She was my best friend. There wasn't a day that went by that I didn't talk to my mom. I even called her from Aruba on my honeymoon with Matt every day, and he paid the charges too. He paid all those charges. But there wasn't a day that went by that I didn't talk to my mom. And so when she died, I had just had Mason. Mason was 6 months old, and I was dealing with some postpartum depression. I had Mason when I was 39, and I had a lot of hormone things, and my depression after her death turned into psychosis. And I went out one night in the truck in the middle of the night, and I was going to drive it into the creek, and I was going to take my life. And when I sat in that truck and I turned it on, audibly, I heard a voice from behind me that told me to turn off the truck and go in the house and hold my baby. And I looked behind me, and I was freaked out, and I was scared. And I might have shared this story before. And then I was like, you're hearing things. And then I heard it again. Heather, turn off the truck, go in and hold your baby. And I tell you, I was so terrified. I ran out of that truck. I think I left I turned it off, but I think I left the keys in the truck. I ran into the house. I closed the sliding door, and I just stared at that truck. And I didn't see nobody in it. And I said, you are losing your mind. I know now that was the voice of the Holy Spirit preventing me from doing something that I was not meant to do, that I was not called to do. And when I went past Mason's room, I was going to go back to bed. I stopped and I backed up and went over to the crib, and I picked him up, and I sat in a rocking chair, and I held him right next to my face, and I rocked him all night long. And that is the first time that I recall really being touched by the Father. And so fast forward, Matt and I were married during me grieving my mom. And 5 years later, I stopped celebrating my birthday. My birthday was me and my mom's anniversary. So we always, I always bought her a gift, and we always spent the day together. I stopped celebrating my birthday. I didn't want to celebrate Mother's Day. I didn't want to do Christmas. I was very sad and didn't handle it well. And 5 years, Matt finally looked at me and said, I need you to come back to us. The kids want to celebrate you, and you won't let them, and you're robbing them, and you're robbing me, and you're robbing yourself, and your mom wouldn't want this for you. And so it's, looking back now, like Matt was walking me through grief that would later lead up to grieving him. And I knew grieving him, as much as I loved my mother, grieving the love of my life, my partner, my other half, my person, was going to be so much more intense and harder. And I wanted to do it in a way that I could heal from and come back from. And that really started my walk with the Lord in the hospital, because I had no one else to talk to. It was during COVID. I wasn't allowed really any visitors. And it was a lot of not even prayer. I just would openly talk to God. And he carried me through. And so when I talk to you these next few nights about grief and my grief journey, I can only talk about my experience in hopes that sharing will help you in some way. Just know that I could not do it without God, without the Father, without Jesus. And when you surrender and you give it to Him, when you lay it at the foot of the cross and you ask Him to carry it for you, He will. He loves you, and He will not forsake you, and He will be faithful, and He will collect every tear you shed. So, one of the books that I read that helped me a lot, if you are walking in grief, is by Tony Evans. Hope for the Healing. I know I have hope for the healing, hope for the hurting, but you will be healed. Hope for the hurting. And Tony Evans, in less than 2 years, lost his brother, his sister, his sister-in-law, his father, and then his wife. And also both of his daughters were diagnosed with cancer. So when you read his words, he is a man talking from that pit, from that well of grief. And this book changed my heart space, my heart posture. So I cannot recommend this enough. I also read the book of Job. It was the first full book that I sat and read after the accident. And it taught me a lot about suffering and about faith and about perseverance and purpose. And so, I know I've already rambled for 15 minutes. I'm sorry. I don't want to make these super long for you. But I do want to know if you have specific questions for me in my walk with grief. Leave them down below so I can address them in the next few nights. And if we go over past Christmas and we're still talking about grief, that's okay too. We will talk about it. I feel like it's a taboo subject, and it's difficult. It's difficult to talk about. It's difficult to share. It's difficult to navigate. And you will go through stages. I will say, if you are new in your grief walk, give yourself grace. Grace that you would give to anyone else. I think it's really hard sometimes to give ourselves the grace that we would give others. But give yourself grace. Feel all the feelings. It is okay to cry. You do not have to suck it in. You do not have to do, I know we're coming up on the holidays. If you don't want to celebrate, don't. If you want to, do it. If you know, and every day might be different. One day I would feel like I just needed to be around people and I didn't want to be alone. And then I would have days that I would leave the house early and go sit at my church for a couple hours before church would start, just so I could sit under the pavilion on a picnic bench by myself with my Bible, because I just needed that quiet. I needed that alone. So the best advice that other widows gave me, and I'm I will talk from a place of widowhood, but this is for anyone who's experiencing loss, is take it minute by minute. And then that minute by minute will turn into 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, a day, a week. Give yourself grace. Give yourself permission to pivot as needed, to do the things that you feel like you can do, and let go of the thing. And don't let guilt stop you. Don't let guilt get in the way. You have nothing to feel guilty about. If you can't attend the family dinner at Christmas time, it's okay. And people will understand. Like, people are, for the most part, loving and gracious and want to help you. And they really can't. There's really nothing anyone can say or do for you that will help ease the pain at all. So if you are somebody who knows somebody who's grieving this holiday, the best advice I can say is just be there. Don't tell them, hey, call me if you need me, because they won't call you, because they don't even know what they need. I didn't know what I needed. But I just had friends that just showed up and would sit with me. I had one friend that literally sat on her knees down at my feet with her hands on my knee, her hands in my hands, and just sat with me. I had friends call me in the middle of the night because they knew I was up and I couldn't sleep. Just call me, FaceTime me. Okay, I'm going to sit with you. We don't have to talk about anything. We can talk about nothing. And just be with them. They don't expect you to fix it. There is no fixing it. There is no making it better. But I tell you, just having people be by your side is everything. One of the most painful things I experienced in especially my early grief, was how many people left me. And I think they call it secondary grief, where friends just didn't show up. Friends just abandoned me. Friends just, they were waiting around for me to get back to my old self. And they didn't understand that old Heather died with Matt. I didn't even know who I was anymore. I had no identity. Everything changes in widowhood. The way you eat, the way you cook, the way you do laundry, the way you clean your house, setting up the bathroom for the first time. I used to set up the bathroom for Matt with his rolled towels and his shaving and his soap and his, all of the things in a bucket. He loved it. He said it's like being at a hotel. He loved it. And I can't even tell you how long I stared at that bucket. Do I feel it? He's not here to use it. But do I feel it anyway? What do I do with the bucket? It's very overwhelming. Now, I did have 2 brain injuries, so my grief might have been a little bit more, intensified by that. But I think I can speak for many widows and widowers, or people who, I've never lost a child, but I have lost a parent. We don't know what we need. We're just legit in a survival mode, and we don't even realize it. So if you know somebody who's grieving, give them grace. Show up. Just show up. Just show up. That's the best thing you can do for them. And if you are in your grief walk, give yourself grace. Pivot, even if it's different, minute by minute. Survive the minute, get to the next one, and then the next one. And do whatever it is that you need to do to get through. And those are for the early stages of grief. And of course, I'm no expert. I'm just talking from experience, my own experience. But we'll talk more about some things that I did. And, it's a journey. It's not a race. It's a journey. This is a journey we're all going to be on. We have a 100% chance of not surviving this life. So we are going to either be the one that people are grieving over, or we are going to be grieving over someone we love. Because people die every day, right? It is like birth. And it's a taboo subject. And I think we really are. It's like one of those things that people just don't talk about, and so people don't know how to navigate it. And I want to talk about that too, like navigating your children in grief. That's something I never thought I would do, and I did it not only with them losing their grandma, but then, I have 2 that I helped who lost their dad. So these are some topics that I want to hit on the next few days with you. But if you have a direct question for me, and I do want to talk about remarriage and not remarrying, and what that might look like for you. We're not all the same, and we're not all called for the same purpose. So, but that's another topic I'd like to hit on. But if you have any questions for me, leave them down below, and I will try to answer them in these little videos. But I definitely think we need to talk about grief more. I think we need to make it more, it's an everyday occurrence, and it's going to touch each and every one of us at some point in our life. And yet it's taboo, and we don't know how to navigate it, and we don't know how to survive it. We swallow it, and then many of us turn to other outlets to numb it, to get rid of it, to avoid it, and then we just spiral. So how do we walk with grief, with grace, and survive it? And for me, it's walking with the Lord, because I couldn't do any of it. I'm a broken, lost sinner. I'm a broken sinner. But by the grace of God go I. And yeah. All right. 25 minutes. I could talk about this subject all day, though. So it's meaningful and it's deep. And I tell you, grief will make you feel so alone. so isolated, so alone. And you're not. And I'm here to tell you you're not. And there's many of us here. And I hope that down in the comment section, we can be a support for one another who are walking this. I have like the best subscribers in all of YouTube land. Like, you guys are amazing and incredible prayer warriors, and you brought me back with and gave me purpose to come back here and God has paved my steps. And now talking about this is my paying it forward in some way. So anyway, all right, I'll see you tomorrow night. And if you have any questions, leave them down below and I will try to answer them for you. All right, God bless. And I love you guys.